You ready? Inside. From the beginning. The Gemara rechent ois bepratius. The Gemara lists in detail. V'yazei Moshe Rabbeinu, ha-Moshe Rabbeinu, hat zugegrei die Yidden, prepared the Jewish people, zu Kabbalah Satera, to receive the Torah, b'meshach di Tag, during the days, von zeir onkumun zum Har Sinai, from the day they came to Har Sinai, bis zum Tag von Matan Torah, until the actual day when the Torah was given. Now everything I just told you about Peh, we're now reading inside. Beis Sivan, Tuesday, the 2nd of Sivan. Amalahu, Hashem told Moshe, and Moshe repeated to the Jewish people, Va'atem tiyuli mamlechas kohenim, you're going to be for me a nation of priests and a holy people. Mamlechas kohenim means kings and priests. Mamlecha means malachim, kohenim means priests, goy Chodesh, and segula. Right? 4 promises. You're going to be kings, you're going to be priests, you're going to be holy, and you're going to be my favorite ones. What do I want back? You're going to do Torah mitzvahs, and understand that there's no divorce from this, no way out. And understand further, this includes you and your children's children, are saved kol hadedes. So Tuesday, Beis Sivan, Moshe goes up early in the morning. Hashem gives him the contract. He tells them what he's offering. He's telling him what he wants. Moshe comes down from the mountain. He calls the little Jewish people together. He tells them to turn to the contract. And what did the Yidden say? Nase. Right? As my son would say, Ani ba'ad. We're in. Good. Next. Gimel Sivan. Wednesday, the 3rd day of Sivan. Mitzvah Hagbala, he gave the mitzvah putting up fences. Now what's the yesod of mitzvah Hagbala? What's the foundation of mitzvah Hagbala? Anybody? That Hashem is not going to talk to us. He's going to talk only to Moshe Rabbeinu. And we're going to see, we're going to be witnesses. Like I described you before, we're going to be witnesses. But we're not going to hear the voice of Hashem. We're not going to be prophets. We're not going to hear the voice of Hashem. We'll know Nevuah is true. And we will know Nevuah is true not just because a tzaddik can predict the future, but because we witnessed that Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu, but we're not going to hear the voice. In other words, we're going to get the Torah through a lawyer. They're seeing Moshe Rabbeinu interact with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but they're not seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're seeing what happens to Moshe's guf. They're seeing Moshe's body react to Hashem speaking to him, but they're not seeing the Eibishter. Seeing the Eibishter would be Nevuah. They're not able to see the Eibishter. Why? They're regular people. They're not ready for prophecy. They haven't done nothing to prepare for prophecy. Anything to prepare for prophecy. You follow? Keep going. So Moshe comes down the mountain on this Wednesday and he tells the Jewish people that Hashem said we're going to put up a fence. You're going to be outside. I'm going to be inside. Hashem is going to talk to me and you're not going to hear a word. You're just going to see the Eibishter talking to me. And the Yidden said, no deal. If we're making a deal, let's say if kol hadedes till the end of time, Hashem is going to have to talk to us directly. Let's say Neinu Liras Makenu. So Moshe got the next morning. Dalet Sivan, the 4th of Sivan, which was on a Thursday, the tzivui of Perisha, the mitzvah of making themselves holy, separating themselves from your wives, living lives of pristineness and holiness and purity of mind and heart and body. The way that Rambam describes at great length all the things you got to do to become a Navi. But most people spend a lifetime becoming a Navi. The Jewish people at 48 hours, 2 days. So Hashem told Moshe, this is a bad idea. It's a bad idea. It's going to be bad. And Hashem said, Moshe Hashem, a bad idea? It's the greatest day in the world. Call Lam Hashem Nevi'im. And Moshe says, Hashem says to Moshe, but they're not ready for it. And Moshe says, but they want it. What kind of an argument is that? Hashem says they're not ready for it. Moshe says they want it. Because Moshe wants it. Moshe wants that every Yid should be a Navi. And Hashem says, I also want every Yid should be a Navi. But to be a Navi, you have to live the kind of life Moshe Rabbeinu lives. Most Yidden didn't live that life. But Moshe says they want. Let's try. Let's see what happens. Let's make an experiment. Next, Hey Sivan, the 5th of Sivan, which is Friday now, is given Bonam is Beach, he built an altar. Hikr Balapradni, he brought a carbon. Vadlamidis Nasav and Nishma, they call Yisrael, all the Jewish people committed to the Torah. So the Bris Milah they did 5-6 weeks before by Carbon Pesach, right? Now there was a carbon brought, blood sprayed, which means that they all went to the mikveh, And they all were makabel mitzvahs. They said, Nasef and Nishma, we will do and we will hear, right? I mean, I don't know if any of you are Gadim. I don't know. I don't need to know. But the halacha by Gadis is that Mashmiya may say, Ktas mitzvahs kalus, or Ktas mitzvahs chamuras. To become a Geret Tzedek, you don't have to know all the mitzvahs. They teach you some of the easy ones and some of the hard ones. That's the Lashon HaGemara. A little bit of the easy ones and a little bit of the hard ones, and you decide if you want it. Gadis. So Moshe Rabbeinu read a Sefer Abris, he read the contract, and the Jewish people said very excitedly, Nasa, we're in. We're in. This was Friday. Correct? Friday night, the Yidden went to sleep. The Eibishter couldn't sleep. The Chosin came to the chuppah before the Kala came very, very early. Moshe Rabbeinu wakes us up, schleps us out of the camp. He puts us in front of the Eibishter at the mountain. Hashem starts to speak, and then all things go pfeifen. Okay? We're good? So we just went through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. Huh?
It sounded funny, but what is pfeifen?
Gain pfeifen, literally to whistle. It means to be up a creek without a paddle. It means to go no place. Tuesday, he gave us the contract. Wednesday, he gave us the first set of terms that we should not be prophets. Thursday, he gave us the second set of terms that we will be prophets. Friday, we were converted. Shabbos, we became prophets. And what happened next? We platzed. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times. And we said to Moshe, let's go back to plan A. Hashem said on Wednesday that we shouldn't be prophets, right? Yeah. We can't be prophets. You'll be the prophet, we'll be the regular people. So Hashem was right. Huh? And Moshe was so upset. Moshe was so upset. Moshe was so upset. If you could think about Moshe's mindset, so you died, big deal, but you became a Navi. That's how he looked at it. You met Hashem face to face, panim up panim, and we can't live like this. So the Pasuk says, Moshe comes HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's so disappointed. Hashem told him it would happen. And Moshe said, but they want. So Hashem tells Moshe tells Abish that they don't want to be prophets anymore. I'm going to be the prophet, and you're going to speak only to me, and they're going to listen to what I say. And Hashem said, I told you. And Moshe says, I'm depressed. I need a therapist. You have to invent Freud a few thousand years earlier. I should sit on his couch and tell me what's wrong with me. I'm depressed. So the Abish says, Hey, Tiv was Hashem Dibeiru. The way you understand those words is two things. They were right to ask for prophecy in the beginning. And they're right to ask for no more prophecy now. When they said to you, we want to meet the king, they were right. And when they said now, Hashem should not speak to us because we don't want to die, they were right again. So there was really no mistakes. Hashem said to put up fences. Yidden asked to become prophets, and the Eibishter wanted them to ask to become prophets. And they became prophets, and they passed away 10 times. And then they said they don't want to die anymore. And Hashem said, good. 10 times you had to go through this. Now you're not going to be prophets anymore. Go back to your regular lives. And Moshe is going to be my prophet. This is the story of the week of Matan Torah. What's missing in the story? The day before. Monday was the Chodesh. Monday they came to Har Sinai. What happened on that day? What's the teretz? Nothing happened. Nothing happened. I shouldn't say a word. Let's keep reading. It's 4 lines on the end of page 7. On the Chodesh Sivan. Dem Tag, wenn sie seinen angekommen zum Har Sinai, the day they came to Mount Sinai, Zog the Gemara says, and the Rebbe quotes, Le'amalu v'le'midi, he told them nothing, Mishum chul shada urcha, they were tired from the trip. You hear? Turn the page, please. Page 8. Zayendik neged hahar. The Jews are standing next to the mountain. Noch die alle Wochen und Tag von Gaguim tzekabal. After all the weeks and all the days that they didn't literally count the days. You know that it says in the Rishonim that the reason we have the mitzvah of Sfiras Omer is because they didn't count the days. So from the time they left Mitzrayim till now, it's about 45, 46 days. They counted every single day. Soll sich Moshe Rabbeinu abhalten. Moshe Rabbeinu should refrain, should hold himself back. Von zu mechen sein die Yidden. from to prepare the Jewish people to Kabbalah Satayr, to receive the Torah, to leave Chulsha the Orchas, they're tired. Mamish. Yidden are so anxious to get the Torah. So you take a kid to Disneyland, or you take your kid to Six Flags, you say, you know what, now we'll take a nap. You'll go in an hour, right? That's not happening. They want to go into the, want to have fun. The Abish, the Yidden are counting the days till Matan Torah. They finally come to Har Sinai, but she says, no, you're tired, go take a nap, come back tomorrow. Why did Moshe do it, and why did Yidden agree? Let's go. They didn't say one single word. They didn't say one single word. He didn't tell them one word about what was going to happen. So the shaila is, why didn't Moshe say something? Say something. He didn't say nothing. And on the other hand, the Jewish people, how is it possible? As they have masking gewesen, they agreed, abzuruhen, to rest, sich, und nicht gemont by Moshe, rather than the man of Moshe Rabbeinu, as they lost in the head and epis. He should let them hear at least something, was the chala poches, epis was, at least something small, at least, wegen Kabbalah's Torah. How does Moshe get away with it? They come Monday, they walked a whole kilometer, a whole 2,000 amas, a whole 1,000 meters. They go from Refidim, they come to Har Sinai, and they want to hear preparation. Moshe says, no, today you're tired, come back tomorrow. Why did Moshe tell them they were tired, and why they didn't agree that they were tired? It's a good tekashis. What's the teretz? Page 9. The teretz is as follows. Do I have your attention? Yes? Mitchul shodu urcha. When it says that on Chodesh Sivan, Hashem told them nothing, because they were tired from the journey, meinin chazal nitazoi de chalishas aguf. They weren't physically tired. They walked a kilometer. It's not a big deal. From their gashmis de kahalicha baderech, from the physical journey. Nor, but rather, beikir primarily, they were tired from the chalishas ruchnis, the spiritual fatigue. Mitzad dem ruchnis de kahalicha baderech, because they had a spiritual journey on a road. Was the Yidden haben demol durchgemacht, that the Jewish people just sojourned. And he explains. Just as there is physical movement from a place to a place physically, from one physical place to another physical place, similarly there is the idea of spiritual walking, on a spiritual journey. I'm continuing to read inside because I'm up here now. Page 9, second column. This means this. The Masois was Yidden seine gegangen from Mitzrayim bis Har Sinai. Every trip that the Jewish people took from leaving Mitzrayim until they came to Har Sinai, seine gewesen nicht nur halicha gashmis, it wasn't only a physical journey, nor oichu beikir, it was also and primarily halicha ruchnis, a spiritual journey. Every time the Jewish people physically moved, they were spiritually moving. Now what did I tell you last week? That they moved very fast, it happened very rapidly. And that's why there was so much nerves. Every time they moved physically, they had to understand that now they have to do a move spiritually. The Alam Asois, every journey, I'm here. Aliyas and Avodas Hashem are each considered an ascent in serving Hashem. And again, in Eifel Mesudah, there was an order to it. And Aliyah Midargil Adaga, they went from one step to the next step. Okay? In a gradual way. But they were still exhausted from all of these trips. Let me pause here right now. I told this to you last week, I told you in the previous Sichos, that in Sefer Bamidbar, in the book of Numbers, in the section which is called Maseh, Eila Maseh B'nei Yisrael, Ashotzo Meretz Mitzrayim, the journeys that the Jewish people took from Egypt, and it lists all 42 places where they stopped. Every place they stopped. They traveled and they rested. 42 times. So the Baal Shem Tov said that the Torah tells us the journey about the Yidden's traveling 42 times because the whole history of the Jewish people, collected, the whole Jewish people, has 42 stops. Every Jew in his life has 42 stops. Every Jew every year has 42 stops. Every Jew every day has 42 stations.
Exhausting.
It's klal and prat, huh?
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. You have to go from Meida'ani Tasher Kitshanu, Ta'asha Yatzer, to Lakai Neshama, to the Birchas HaShachar, to the Birchas HaTeira, to going to Shul, Hareini Makabel Alai Mitzvah, to say, Shav L'Archamaycha, I'm tired already, and then Adeni Allah Mesher Malach, Vayiyachar, Leilam Yeyadam, Karbanes, Ezom Kaiman. It's a journey. From the time you open your eyes, till the time you put your B'yadcha Afkid Ruchi, Padis Eisa, the Shem Kelemes, at night, you put your head down on your pillow, you say, Mapa Chabashenim Aleinai, it's 42 journeys, spiritual journeys. Yeah, you get up, you go daven, you go learn, you go to work, you eat lunch, you daven mincha, you work some more, you come home, you do homework with your children, you talk to your wife, you learn a little Torah, you go to sleep. Those are 42 journeys. You're tired already. Just from talking about it. Right? Every single one of these in Yonim is a job, it's avodah. When you're davening, you're serving Hashem. When you're learning, you're serving Hashem. When you're eating, you're serving Hashem. When you're working, you're serving Hashem. When you're sleeping, you're serving Hashem. And when you think about the serving of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it tires you out. It steps. I had a neighbor who was a tzaddik hayid. He was a holy Jew. I've never seen anybody like him. He was a Belzer Chassid. Ever heard of Belzer Chassidus? So the Belz had 4 Rebbes. Reb Shalom Belzer, Reb Yeshua Belzer, Reb Yisachar Dov Belzer, and Reb Adala Belzer. The holy Belzer of Reb Adala Belzer passed away in 1957. My neighbor, who was already Olav Shalom, and Mordechai Feder, Olav Shalom, saw the Belzer of. He knew the Belzer of. He saw the Belzer of in Eretz Yisrael. He was mamish. My neighbor was a very big chassid, a Valdeke Yirei Shamayim. So he told me the following. The Belzer of never ate, never slept. But every night he put on pajamas. Every night he put on pajamas. He had no cartilage. He had no grease in his joints. So whenever he moved his hand, it hurt. And people had to help him get dressed. People had to help him get undressed. And the whole time he's saying, oi, oi, oi. It hurt. Physically hurt. The Rebbe slept 15 minutes. His whole sleep was 15 minutes. He said, Rebbe, you can sleep in your clothes. But he slept 15 minutes. No, how can you sleep without pajamas? He had to put on pajamas. So they had to undress him. They had to put on his pajamas. And he lay down and he slept. How long did he sleep? 15 minutes. And he slept very little. Mamish, not normal. 15 minutes. Oh, he woke up. Then he got dressed. Then started the new day. He was never alone. He always had a bacher with him. It's interesting. He never wanted to be by himself. He always wanted somebody else in the room with him. At least one person. Every once in a while he would go to sleep. He'd put on his pajamas. He'd sleep his 15 minutes. He'd wake up. He'd get dressed. He'd say, oh, I'm so tired. When the Belzer Rebbe said, oh, I'm so tired, his Heisbacher, his Mishamish knew what that meant. That when he lay down to sleep, he missed a kavanah. One of the meditations didn't go so good. Some Kabbalistic nonsense. His sleep was not normal sleep. He was a normal person. So he says, the Rebbe can sich zielegen in the Kleider. The Rebbe's tired. He can go to sleep in his clothes. Nein, wie kann ich schlafen in the Kleider? How can you sleep in the clothes? You're in pajamas. It took a half an hour to take off his clothes, to put in his pajamas. He laid down for 30 seconds. A half a minute. Oh, I feel so good. Then he'd take off the pajamas and put in his clothes. Why? Because every time he slept, he did an avodah. If the avodah was missing something, he had to put back on the pajamas to have another kavanah. You understand? This was the holy Belzer Rebbe, and it was physically exhausting. The Badicheverov, you heard of Badicheverov, yeah? He slept every night. Every night he slept. When he slept, the light was on. His bed was in the middle of the room. It wasn't by a wall. One chassid stood at the feet. Another chassid stood at the head. The lights are on. One chassid is reading Zohar out loud. The other chassid is reading Mishnayos out loud. And the Badichev is sleeping. If you made a mistake, he corrected you. And he's sleeping. As soon as you finish reading Mishnayos and Zohar, he gave you a quote. He read from here to here. And when you finish reading that shtickle Mishnayos, when he woke up, that was it. That was his whole sleep. And he was sleeping. He was mamish sleeping. And if you made a mistake, he fixed you. But he was sleeping. And then you... In other words, everything is avodah. And as you said before, it's tiring. But some things are more tiring than others. Let's keep going. Ober by aliyah. Yeah, every physical journey is a spiritual journey. When the Yidden left Mitzrayim, it was a spiritual thing. When they went from Ramses to Sukkot, it was a spiritual thing. When from Sukkot to Piachidas, it was a spiritual thing. When from Piachidas to the next place, everything was spiritual. Every single step was spiritual. And they went step by step. But the aliyah by dem masa. But this particular occasion, when they traveled from the Refidim to Har Sinai, when they went from the Refidim to Har Sinai, which was the grand total of 1 kilometer, is es given beöfen von Shina Ikri. They were making steps. Every journey was a step. But the changes were smaller. The change from Refidim to Har Sinai was bigger. Continue to read. I'm reading inside. The Oisgetiltkeit. You see what I'm reading? Bottom of page 9. The uniqueness, the distinction, the separation from dem Masse of this journey compared to the other journeys. Giben Arois Chazal. The Chazal tell us this difference. B'ma'amoram Hanal, when they say, if in Pasuk on the Pasuk, Vayichan Sham Yisrael, the Jewish people rested there. Turn to page 10. Bitte. Right? What does Rashi, what does the Mechil to say? What does Rashi say? Ish echad, belev echad, there's one man with one heart. Now we learned two Sichos, right? One Sichos says that Ish echad, belev echad means the Yidden achieved unity because of their neshama. The other Sichos says Yidden achieved unity because of the Torah. But they became one. And they didn't complain, and they didn't argue. Says the Rashi. Sha'ar kol achaniyas. Every time the Jewish people traveled with ta'arumis, who speaks Hebrew? Ta'arumis? Complaints? Ubamachlaikis and arguments. They complained to the boss that they're moving too fast. They argued with Moshe, they argued with each other what the move means. Now they make the biggest move of all and everyone's happy. By Sha'ar kol achaniyas, every other time the Jewish people traveled on a given ta'arumis and machlaikis, they complained and they argued. Und Dafka by Derech Haniyah Negedar Dafka on this occasion, when they come to Har Sinai, that the Yidden gestanden in an Achtos Gemur of the Jewish people in a perfect state of unity. Quote: Ki ish echad belev echad, one man with one heart. Whether the one man, one heart comes from the neshama or the one man, one heart comes from the Torah, don't matter. They travel to a place of Achtos. You understand? And the Rebbe continues. Page 10, second paragraph. You think I don't teach you Sichos? So fast we're moving. Literally 4 pages of the Sichos. The Pirush von Shar Kalachanuyah is the meaning of the words that every time they travel, they complain to their boss and they argued with their contemporaries. Is nitchas v'shalom and poshet? They're not complaining that their feet hurt. They're not arguing the guy took up his space in the walk. Is nitchas v'shalom and poshet? And God forbid to think the Jews are complaining and arguing about comforts. No, it says it's an argument that's spiritual. They're complaining to Hashem that they're moving too fast. They're arguing with each other what the moves mean. Is a piece of movement, it's understood. As we said, the nature of things in holiness, and the way things play out spiritually, whenever a Jew is forced to go from one level to another level, they argue l'shem shamayim. How does life work? Does anybody know how life works?
No.
I'll tell you how life works. God runs the world. God runs my life. I never understand what he's doing. I think he's out of his mind. I think he's not paying attention. I think he doesn't care about me. I think he's mean. I think he's obnoxious. I think he's a nudnik. Yeah? When you look back 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later, you say, oh, he loves me so much. That's how he operates. But Pshas Maaseh, you don't see that. You see either he's moving too fast or he's moving too slow, he's moving in the wrong direction. He always does what you don't want. But when you look back at your life, you say, he's okay. He made a gemacht nicht schlecht. This Eibishter did okay. But you don't see it at the time. Because you don't see it at the time, you don't understand it. Because you don't understand it, you don't see the point. Because you don't see the point, you're agitated, you're irritated, you're nervous, you're upset. That's what happened to Yidden. Hashem took them out of Mitzrayim, right? They knew that. Hashem gave them freedom. They knew that. Those were good things. And then Hashem made a move on average once every 4 days, or once every 5 days. They didn't understand that. So they complained and they argued not about the inconvenience, they complained and they argued about the meaning of it. Continues the Rebbe. Aber, however, stehendig neged the when they came to the mountain, and they stood opposite the mountain, hat sich bei den Yidden aufgetan, achidish ikri, all of a sudden the Yidden journeyed to a place where something happened to them which is completely new, parenthesis, heipech hateva, was against their nature. They came to a higher level in Avodas Hashem, and at this higher level in Avodas Hashem, finish the sentence, they all agreed. bottle geworden, alle Likutei Deis, they didn't disagree with one another, didn't complain to the Eibishter. Und sie seinen nisachet geworden, they became perfectly unified, ish echad and nachmeh belev echad, one man with one heart. So every trip they take is a big deal. Every trick they take is so upsetting, it's so disturbing, it's so misunderstood, they argue and they complain and they argue. Here, it was not less, it was even more. They made such a big trip that there was nothing to complain about, there's nothing to argue about. Top of the second column, page 10. Umuven, it's understood as azah greise tirche. Think about what it meant spiritually to come to a place everybody agrees. Hishtadlos, effort, v'yegia and toil, ruchnis, spiritual, zu der gregen od die achtos, to reach such a state of unity. Kinderlach, girls, in Mitzvah Hashem you're going to get married. Only once, and you're going to live long with the same man, and he's actually going to be a mensch. And he's going to love you, which means he's going to accept all your faults, and you're going to love him, which means you can accept all of his faults, and you can have the most beautiful children in the world. And you have a lot of money, and you can have a health, and you can live long, and you have a beautiful house, and you can do a lot of mitzvahs, and Mashiach is going to come. Alamilas, yeah. But wait. The key for that working is that you and him both overlook and keep your mouth shut.
Yes.
That's the key. That's how it works. You do something he doesn't like, and he smiles. He does something you don't like, and you make believe you didn't see it. That's how marriage works. I have a friend, a Yid, who'll give a shir. He's much younger than I am. I mean, yeah, he's almost young enough to be one of my children. You understand? Maybe he's younger than my children. I don't know. My oldest daughter is over 30. He's in maybe early 30s. So he tells me that there's things that his wife does he doesn't like. And he thinks she's wrong. So I said to him, I want to ask you a question. You don't think your wife thinks she's also wrong? Oh, she knows she's wrong. She tells me. So why did she do it? Because she can't control herself. So I want to ask you a question. When you're doing something wrong, and you know you're doing something wrong, would you like someone to point it out to you?
No.
If you do something wrong and you feel terrible about it all by yourself, do you need someone to help you? So I said, what does your wife need from you? Your wife needs from you understanding. That's what she needs from you. She's doing this behavior because her life is hard. Just too much going on. She needs you to stand behind her. To smile. And to say, it's okay. You're not perfect, I'm not perfect. When she does something wrong, you need to tell her it's good. Not tell her how she should fix it. Not feel upset and make sure she knows you're upset and keep your mouth shut. You have to tell her, Hakol beseder. And no one ever told this to him. It was amazing to see his reaction. And then I told him, I want you to know, there's no better way to earn wife's love than that. When she knows you support her. Nobody who makes a mistake, most people, most of the time, don't know. So why they do it? Because it's hard. What you need when you're going through a difficulty and it's hard is that the person you're closest to shouldn't tell you what you did wrong, that you keep your mouth shut. That takes years and years of marriage. It takes years of marriage to learn. And you say, well, I'll do it when he does it, and he says, I'll do it when she does it, and that's the end of the marriage. Or you say, I can only help myself, I can't help my husband. When my husband acts like an idiot, I'm going to make believe I don't see. When my wife acts like she's losing her mind, I'm going to help her with encouragement. I'm not going to criticize her. That's what Shalom Bayis comes down to. It's really what happens. Now, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it, girls? Why are you doing this? Why? Because that's the right thing to do. The right thing to do is shut up. The right thing to do is smile. The right thing to do is to accept. You know, I always tell the girls and the boys, yeah? You want a perfect husband? Take a look in the mirror. You want a perfect wife? Take a look in the mirror. Are you perfect? So what are you entitled to? Punkt. You understand? So you say, she's not perfect, I'm not perfect. My job is to overlook the things about her that I don't like. When you figure out how to do that, you're so rich. You're rich, not she's rich, you're rich. Or I should say you're rich, not he's rich, you're rich. Because when you're able to accept the person you married the way they are, then you can have a marriage, you can have love. But it's hard. This is what happened to the Yidden by Har Sinai. They came to the mountain. They had brains. They understood it differently. But they said it doesn't matter. So nobody argued. No one argued. No one complained. At this point in the Sikha, was there what to complain about? Sure. Was there what to argue about? Sure. But they went to a very good therapist the day before. You understand? They had a very good session. When they came to Har Sinai, they knew the right thing to do is to smile. So the Rebbe says, this is the trip. They weren't tired because they took a long walk. They were tired because they had to, in one day, figure out how when the person next to you acts in a way that you don't like, you say, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to complain. I'm going to keep quiet. That's the Ki'ish Echad B'Leiv Echad. Millions of people all figured out that the best thing I can do for my Shalom Bayis is not get my way, it's keep my mouth closed. They were so exhausted from that little walk. Moshe said, come back tomorrow. And they agreed. You know how special it is? I'm married over 30 years. I can't tell you how many arguments I've had with my wife and how many arguments I've had with me. I'm not going to lie to you. But there are times that each of us acts like a grown-up. And as the longer we're married, the more often it happens. That's how it goes. You become better. Either you get worse or you get better. If you're a mensch, you learn what bothers her, but usually what bothers her bothers you also, but you keep quiet. What bothers me, he says, bothers her also, and she keeps quiet. You know what kind of love you develop from that? It's unbelievable. When you do it, when you figure out, hey, the right thing for me to do is not complain, and then you do it, you feel so good. Wow, how simple was that? Well, it took me 20 years to figure that out. Never ever point out a chasad in another person that they know already. You're going to have kids, yeah? They're going to do stupid things. You think they don't know it's stupid? They need you to tell them? Thank you very much. Ish Echad B'Leiv Echad was the discovery that the right thing to do is not complain. The right thing to do is be quiet. Why? Because that's how you have Shalom Bayis. That's how you have Achdus Yisrael. The Yidden figured that out. And they did it actually. And they were exhausted. Let's read. Right hod gemuz pales ein of the Yidden a groise oiske matiterkeit. Page 10, second column, first full paragraph. It had to influence the Yidden great fatigue. Und der that's why Moshe didn't tell him anything. They made every trip that they made had a spiritual meaning, and they always complained and argued. They didn't complain and argue because they didn't like the fact that they didn't have room to walk. They complained and argued about what it means spiritually. Here, they didn't complain, they didn't argue because they knew that the most important part of the meaning is not to complain and not to argue, to get along, Shalom Bayis. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu told them nothing, because they were pashut, tired. They were exhausted. I want to share with you a very sweet story. I'm out of time, but I'll tell the story anyway. This had it on Gem, on the Living Torah on Gem. It's a crazy story. The Rebbe used to have Yechidus 2 or 3 times a week. The Rebbe had Yechidus 2 or 3 times a week. Sundays, and in the earlier years, Tuesdays and Thursdays. When did Yechidus finish? 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and then the Rebbe used to walk home. He walked home with Chadakov. When the neighborhood began to change, it became a little bit dangerous, so the driver drove him home. Whoever the driver was, drove the Rebbe home. One night, it's 2, 3 in the morning, Yechidus is finishing, and they see the Rebbe and Chayamushka, the Rebbe's wife, pull up in the car. The Rebbe and Chayamushka drove a Cadillac, a big Cadillac, a car, fancy car. The Rebbe and Chayamushka. She drives up to 770. She probably went into the Rebbe's room, but I'm not sure about that detail or not. The Rebbe gets out of it, finishes his day, closes his lights, takes his bag, gets out of the car, goes out of the 770, goes into the car. My father just told me that the Rebbetzin used to drive the Rebbe home often, and the Rebbe sat in the back seat. He didn't sit next to her in the front seat. He sat in the back seat. So normally the Rebbetzin went to the corner of Kingston, and she made a left on Kingston, another left on Eastern Parkway, another left on Brooklyn. She went down till Carroll Street. They made a right on Carroll, a right on President, a right on New York, a right on President, and then they went in front of the house. Right? The Rebbetzin had to drive around. In this case, the Rebbetzin goes to the corner, makes a turn on Kingston, and instead of going left, goes right towards Utica Avenue, the wrong direction. So these two Meshuggah Nebuchadnezzar who were in 770 started to chase the Rebetzin's car. A mile, 20 minutes, till past Utica. And they see the Rebbetzin and the Rebbe, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Park the car, get out of the car as a couple, together, and walk across the street and go into an apartment, into a house, 3 or 4 stories with a house. These Bacharim chased the Rebbe. It's such a chutzpah. It's wow, a chutzpah. Oh my God, it's a chutzpah. They didn't tell the story before. They kept it secret until the last 10 years, which is a chus in itself. The Rebbe and the Rebbetzin go into this apartment. They stayed there till 5 or 6 in the morning, over 3 hours, a very, very long time. The sun is already up. And they see the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin get out of the house, go back into the car, turn around and go home. These two Meshuggah Nebuchadnezzar ran to that apartment and they rang the bell. A lady opens, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. A lady opens the door, yeah. Was the Lubavitcher Rebbe just here? She should have slapped the door in her face. Meshuggah, what are you doing here? Yeah, he was here. What was he doing here? So she told him the truth. My husband and I are married, and we're not getting along so well. So I called up Mrs. Schneerson to ask her for advice about being a wife. You must understand, in the 50s and the 60s, Crown Heights was full of Jews. Most of them were not Lubavitch. They were Stam Yidden, from Yidden, not Lubavitch. And they all knew that the Rebbe lived on President. And the Rebbetzин's phone number was probably listed in the phone book. She called up the Rebbetzin for advice from the Rebbetzin. And the Rebbetzin says to the lady, my husband is very good at this. My husband is very good at this. When he finishes work, I'll bring him over to the house. Work is 2 o'clock in the morning when he finishes work. So after the day's work, 2 o'clock in the morning, she picked the Rebbe up. They went to the house. They knocked on the door. They were waiting for them. The Rebbe stayed in the house for 3 hours. He wouldn't leave till he brought peace into that home. 3 hours. He talked to him and he talked to her. He talked to him. He talked to her. How do you make Shalom Bayis when there's no Shalom Bayis? Really? What do you have to say? You're right. Your husband's an idiot. You're right. Your wife treats you like your little boy, which is every marriage, by the way. Okay, except for yours and your mother's. You say, you love each other, right? Is it worth? You're right, and you're right. But is it worth fighting about? You love each other. You care about each other. You want to be warm. You want to be close. You want to be favorably disposed towards one another. There's things about him you don't like. There's things about her you don't like. They're not going to change. I tell you right now, they're not going to change. But is it worth stealing from yourself? Shalom Bayis, to be right. That's how you do this, right? You don't say you're wrong. You don't say I with him and you're wrong. You say it's not important. It's lo chashuv. It's not important. And if you could get people to hear it, if you get him to hear it, and you get her to hear it, and each one says, not I'm going to fix you, I'm going to fix me. How am I going to fix me? Now I'm going to become a better person. I'm going to not complain when you do things I don't like. I'm not going to complain when you act lazy. That's how you create Shalom Bayis. But in order to do that, you need to be able to stop being so nervous, to calm down. And you have to remember, I love this person. This is not so important. That's why somebody else comes into the picture and says, he has chesrenes, he has faults. So do you. She has chesrenes, she has faults. So do you. They're not going away. You want to be married? You don't want to be married. Of course you want to be married. What's the best way to be married? He should grow up. No, it's not happening. You should ignore it. You should say, this is my husband, this is my wife. That's how you do this. So the Yidden had that happen, the Chodesh Sivan. It's psychological. The Yidden reached a place where they knew that the right thing to do was not to complain and not to argue, just to enjoy the moment. They were exhausted from this. So Moshe says, come back tomorrow. And they said, yeah, we'll come back tomorrow. Okay. L'chaim. Yes. Thank you for the coffee.